Welcome to day 20 of the escape plan. Today we're going to be talking about the, high ticket sales framework, pretty much. Not in depth, but I'm going to walk you through the whole thing so you understand what a call basically looks like and what you can expect from, taking these calls and making a lot of money. So, first things first, sales isn't about convincing, it's about leading and helping someone make a decision that serves their best interests, right? In this video, I'm going to show you the entire flow of a high ticket sales call, right? Step by step, so that you actually understand what's happening behind the scenes when someone says yes to changing their life or changing their business. This is the flow that I've used to close high ticket offers, build freedom, and help my clients change lives. Really, it's a framework that is unmatched, and this is a lot of sauce that we're going to be covering, so get your pen and paper out. All right, so the purpose of the call is, this is not a pitch, right? This is not pressure. This is a guided conversation, right? To actually help someone get clear on what they really want, help someone get clear on what's been holding them back, and help them see if there's a real solution available out there for them, right? And then at the end, we help them make a decision based on just facts and truth. Not fear, not confusion, not anything like that, right? You're there to serve them, you're there to lead them, and you're there to challenge them in the best possible way, right? It isn't about being slick. We've spoken about this in the sales psychology episode. But you need to lead them. And the best way to start doing that is start understanding your prospects and start behaving like how you want your prospects to behave, right? If you want your prospects to pay in full $10,000, well, how could you ever expect someone to do that if you've never done it yourself, right? And that isn't to say you're not going to see success, right? That is what I'm basically saying is there will be a point where it's a lot about like the energy you have and the way that you show up. It's not necessarily about like the questions you're asking or the framework. And at that point is when you really need to start leveling up and behaving and acting in a way that you want to kind of receive the same energy. It's very important that we do that. But this is the 7-part sales call breakdown, right? It's the bird's eye view of what a world-class closer does on a call, right? So the first thing we have is obviously the greeting, right? The greeting is just, you want to come in with a confident tone, right? Warm tone as well. A lot of times, especially if you're selling in the B2C world, right? So you're selling to an individual rather than a business. These individuals can be a bit scared or, a little bit underprepared, let's say, about the call. So you need to fill them with that confidence, get them relaxed, build rapport, and mirror their energy as well. This is important. So if someone's like coming on high energy, match it. If someone's coming on low energy, you don't want to be low as well. You want to kind of bring them up to you, right? That's what I recommend. But you do it slowly. You don't come out the gate swinging like high energy. You do it slow and steady, and you kind of break the shell open. You don't try and smash it. You try and like crack it slowly, okay? Like an egg. Got to be gentle. You don't want any eggshells in your scrambled eggs, right? So this is important because this sets the stage and the tone for the rest of the call, right? The thing to remember is, whether you like it or not, people make, they have first impressions, and those first impressions last. So you need to make a good first impression, right? Because it can set the tone for how the call goes. There's a saying in sales that you can win or lose the call in the first 2 minutes, right? And that's because it's so important that you set the right tone for the call. If you're vibing, if you're getting along immediately at the beginning, that's a good sign. However, if you are, awkward, they're awkward, it's just, you're not going to build trust. They're not going to trust you, simply. So yeah, the greeting is just to set a warm, confident tone. And the second bit is framing, right? So here is basically where we set the expectation of how the call is going to go, right? Pretty simple. You position yourself as a trusted advisor, right? Whether that be a coach or whatever it be. Just someone that they can like be open with, and you kind of say to them like, look, I need you to be open with me, blah, 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 so we can, help you best. And in here, we need to kind of get buy-in from them before you ask questions. So for example, you can be like, so today, basically what we're going to do is I'm going to ask you a couple questions to understand your goals and really get a good understanding of where you're at. If it feels like a good fit, I'll walk you through how we might be able to help. If not, no pressure. Either way. Sound good? This basically will disarm resistance. Again, going into the call, people are going to expect things. Like, how is this call going to go? What's going to happen? Answer those questions that they have before they even come up, right? And that's what framing does as well. It disarms them, it lowers resistance, it builds that cooperation. You're basically saying like, look, we're going to be talking together. This is going to be us having a conversation. And the better conversation we have, the more I'd be able to help you. Pretty much, right? Very simple. Just so you know, I'm going to be breaking these 7 parts down into a lot more detail on what you need to do and how it works effectively so that you can start implementing it for yourself. And by the end of it, you should have a very solid script, I guess. And you should never use scripts, personally. You should use a framework. Every salesperson uses a framework. Every single one of them. And that's what this is that I'm walking you through, obviously. It is a framework, it's not a script. Because conversations, you can't script conversations, obviously. So you will have a solid framework by the end of this and a solid script to start practicing with so you can get comfortable with the framework. All right? So we've covered greeting, framing. Now we get into the interesting stuff. It's making the prospect aware and yourself aware of the problem that is, that we're facing. So you basically want to, in this section, understand their biggest pain point, their biggest challenge, right? Try and understand. We really need to understand here what's holding them back. What is, the reason why they're not at their goals yet? And we really need to uncover a lot here. We need to ask them questions that allow the prospects to hear themselves clearly. I've mentioned this probably before. The prospect does not care about what you say at all, right? The prospect cares about what they say. So it's very important that we're asking questions that allow the prospects to actually hear how they feel and, the problems that they're actually experiencing. Because if they don't hear their problems and their, pain, they don't care about what you're going to say. You can say that they might totally, let's say you're talking to an overweight dude. You telling an overweight person that they have low confidence, that they don't like the way they look in the mirror, that they have like a shit relationship with their friends and their family because of their weight, isn't effective. Nowhere near as effective as you asking questions, being like, so like, you've been overweight for how long now? Okay. And I guess, how does that make you feel? How has it made you feel being overweight for 7 years? And then they're going to be like, not great. What do you mean by that? Well, I don't like the way I look at myself in the mirror. Oh. And when you say you don't like the way you're looking at yourself in the mirror, like, is that having an impact on the rest of your life? Confidence maybe, or relationships wise? And then you're getting more and more and more, right? You're simply leading the conversation. You aren't telling your prospect anything. You're having an open conversation with them, and they are going to actually be able to share their pain in a much more effective way that they actually listen to themselves. It's much more effective coming from themselves than it is coming from you, the salesperson, right? You're helping them face their real problem, simply. And it might even be for the first time. And that's why sales can be such a great experience to have, and just amazing in general. It's because you're going to be having conversations with people, And in these conversations, they're going to be talking to you about stuff that they have probably never told anyone. And that builds trust. And that's why this section, if you nail the problem awareness section, you are going to fucking smash it in sales. Simply, right? Then once we understand, okay, this is the pain, this is how you've been feeling, this is the effect it's been having on your life, we go into the solution, right? We shift the conversation towards what they want, what they're looking for in a solution. We want to understand what their desired situation is, their desired state, right? What does, why, you can ask this question, like, why even jump on this call? Like, why even look for additional help? Like, I can understand the rationale of, like, you wanting this, but why even want additional help in the first place, right? And then they might say, oh, because I want accountability, because I've tried in the past and it hasn't worked, and I really want this to work this time, etc. Okay, so they want accountability. And this is important, right? In this solution phase, we're gathering information to, like, we write it down in our notepad, whatever. We're gathering information here to basically package up in our pitch, or in our tailored pitch to them, right? Same with the problem and the pain that we get. We package this up in our pitch as well to make it effective, so that they hear, like, we're using their words. We're not using our words or our assumptions. We're simply using their words. You also, in the solution, right, you don't obviously only talk about what they want in a solution, but you talk about, okay, let's say you start with this solution that you're looking for, the accountability, you get the coaching from us, etc. What does success look like to you in 6 months, right? And what you're able to do here is simply get a better understanding of what they want out of it, right? Going back to the fitness coach thing, it's like, okay, let's say they're in fitness, like, they want a six-pack. Why do you want a six-pack? Because I want to be confident in the mirror. Why do you want to have that confidence? Why is that so important to you? Well, it's important to me because I'm going to be able to show up better in my relationships with random people, with myself, with my family, all of this stuff. Right. So that is basically like the solution overall, right? It is understanding what they want and understanding where they want to be. And again, we really need to get like the emotion here, because it's important, because it's not for us, it's for them. It's for them to understand, okay, this is what I want, this is why I want it. Because as a salesperson, if you have a solution for someone's problems, it is your duty to sell them that solution. Because otherwise you're just an asshole. Simply, you are, right? If you know you can help someone that has the problems that you solve, and you don't sell it to them, you're an asshole, right? In this solution phase, what we're doing is we're helping them understand and visualize what it's like to win. We're getting clarity on, if what we do can actually help them. That's what we're doing here. That's what's really important. After this, right, what we're doing is we're going into the consequence, right? And in the consequence, we basically are talking about what happens if they stay the same. What happens if they don't do anything to change their situation, if they stay having the problems they've been having the pain they've been having? Like, what happens if nothing changes? How does this affect other areas of your life if you continue going down this path, if you don't change, right? And again, what we're doing here is simply getting our prospects to understand, oh, I actually need to do something about this, right? We're not putting pressure on them. We're simply getting them to understand what, doing nothing actually does. Because believe it or not, people don't think about this stuff, right? Like, you should ask yourself, like, what's the consequence of me being and working a 9 to 5 for the rest of my life? What's the consequence of that, right? I'll have regret when I'm older. I'll have this, I'll have this. Really think about it. Think about the consequences of staying the same and consequences of not changing in all areas, not just financially, but relationships, health, fitness, everything. Because if you're not clear on that, you're never going to change, ever. So that's why we do this, because we need to make our prospects and the people we're talking to very clear on what happens if they don't change, right? And this creates something in sales called urgency. It's urgency creation, right? Then, throughout this phase, right, the problem awareness, the solution, and the consequence, we will have identified whether we can actually help them or not. Simply, right? This is the section we will have identified whether we can help them or not. If we can, we pitch them. If we, by the end of it, realize we can't help them, because maybe they don't want to help themselves, right? Obviously, it's our job to try and get them to help themselves, but, people like to get in their own ways. I'm sure you've spoken to your parents or whatever about maybe getting fitter or maybe doing this and that to help them. But they say no. They push it off. They do this. People get in their way all the times. And so, because of that, it's not your job to it's your job to shift beliefs and to try and help people get out of their own way. That's a huge part of it. And people are going to stand in their own way, and it's your job to do that. But if someone is trying to pretend like they're happy with where their life is and the consequence isn't that bad and they don't really want much, that's not really someone that you want to work with, because they're probably not going to see much success anyway, right? Someone really needs to feel like they hate where they are, they hate the path they're on, and they want so much more, and they're ready to go for it, because those people are going to actually succeed. And those are the people you really need to focus on selling. Now, in the pitch, right, we only present it if we have a solution to what they've told us they want, right? In the pitch, it's crucial we use their words, we use their goals, we use their pain points, but we keep it simple, we keep it confident, and it's results-based, because in the pitch we need to keep them in results-based thinking, right? Focused on the results that they're going to achieve, right? You're showing them the bridge between where they are now and where they want to be. That's all you're doing in the pitch. And you need to answer their questions that they're going to be potentially having in their head. By the end of the pitch, they should have no questions. They should be clear on the journey that is going to get them there. But there's a saying in sales, it's like focus on the destination rather than the journey. You don't need to go into too much detail about the journey, because you don't buy a flight because of, the seats, the airplane food, the long wait before the flight, the time of the flight, the wait after for your bags, going through security, going through customs. That's not why you go on a flight. You go on a flight because of where the destination is, right? That's why I'm in the south of France right now, for that reason. So, because of that, it's important that we obviously focus on the destination rather than the journey. But we obviously still touch on the journey, just not into too much depth, because it just doesn't matter at this point in time. And then we get to objection handling. And objection handling is basically where we help our prospects move through fear or uncertainty that they have, right? They might have uncertainty about the price, about the service, or there's a bunch of things they might have uncertainty or fear around. And it's our job to stay calm, to stay curious, to stay grounded during this, objection handling phase, right? All we're doing is we're resolving uncertainty, right? We need to just get them back into results-based thinking, make sure they actually want to even do this, make sure that they actually believe it's going to help them. And then we tackle them, the uncertainty they have. All we're doing in this is asking for clarity, right? So they might say I want to speak to someone before I do this. Why do you want to do that? Right? That's kind of a question you could do. Obviously you want to tie down that they believe in the service, etc., etc. But quite simply, you can get quite far by just asking why, and they'll tell you eventually. And if you've done, right, because this is the thing, right? If you've done the problem awareness, the solution, the consequence, the framing, the greeting, and the pitch to a T, you can have very little to no objections, right? All the objections that I get in sales are logistic objections, typically, right? When I'm on a sales call, it's like, can you afford it or not? That's really what it comes down to, because I've been doing this for so long. And if they can afford it, cool, we get them started. If they can't, we figure something out, right? Because that's the beauty of this. Like, we come up with a solution. Like, they might not have the money, but we come up with a solution because we need to get our solution to their problems, because that's what we're doing. We're solving problems for people. It's amazing. And then throughout the entire thing, right, there's this bonus. There's this thing called probing questions and clarifying questions. So throughout the entire call, right, we're doing this thing. It's gaining clarity around things they've said, etc. Because, for example, let's say I'm selling for a drop shipping coach, right? It's a coach that helps someone make money with drop shipping or e-commerce, right? And I ask them, like, okay, so the goal for you is you want to make 10K a month. Okay, I know that making 10K a month, they probably want to travel, they probably want to do this and this and this, but I'm not going to assume what they want. I'm going to ask them, okay, like, making 10K a month, what does that allow you to do that you can't really do right now? Simple, right? We're just getting understanding of what they're basically trying to say. It allows them to travel. Why is traveling so important to you, man? Understand, let's try and really, and this is where we build a lot of trust here. This is where the kind of prospect feels like you're listening to them and that you're trusting them. And they will then trust you. Trust is a two-way street. Okay? And that's pretty much it, right? It's very simple, right? Rewatch it if you feel like you need to make sure you have the best notes possible. And this is what real sales looks like. You're not a sleazy car salesman. You're not manipulating anyone. You're not putting pressure on anyone. You're leading people, right? You're clarifying. You're giving someone clarity on what they want and what they don't want. You're helping someone say yes to the future that they want. That's it. That's all you're doing. In the next few videos, we're going to be breaking down more of these different parts. And yeah, this is where the fun starts, ladies and gents, so strap up and let's get absolutely cracking.